Hi there, I'm Michael Hill with Canine Chronicle TV, and I'm here today for our Influencers series with Paul Catterson. And we'll be talking about who was an influence on him as a person in dogs today. How are you, Paul?
I'm good. How are you, Michael?
I'm great. So, why don't we start at the beginning? How did you first get involved in the sport?
My mom, like a lot of people, we got our first show dog when I was about 10. My mom started in horses. I never really was into the horses. And then she got older and horses get to be a little more work. Um, she had been to Westminster. My whole family grew up on the East Coast. So being in horses, she knew enough to go to a dog show and find a breeder.
It was
My
kind of
dad,
transferable.
yeah, my dad had a Boston Terrier as a kid. So that's what she was going to get. And so she did. She bought one. She actually bought it as a pet. She had no intention of showing it, but like everybody else, kind of caught the bug. And we did show her. We never finished her, but did breed her, and
Hmm.
started from that. And that I was, like I said, I was about 10 then. When I was about 12, my dad made the mistake of watching Westminster on TV and commenting how much he liked the Brussels Griffon. And my dad loves the dogs. I mean, he loves them. He never goes to the dog shows. He's the one that takes care of them during when my mom and I were at shows, but I don't think he
Uh-huh.
ever wanted more than a couple. So,
Sure.
so he made that mistake. And I don't know, 6 months later, I had no idea we had a Brussels Griffon. And so those are the
Somehow just
two
ended
breeds.
up in the house.
Yeah, those are the two breeds my mom bred through my
Okay.
childhood. Actually, ended up getting more involved in Griffons. That's what people think my original breed is, but it was actually Boston's more so. So
Wow.
that's what I showed. I showed mainly at Boston and juniors, sometimes a Griffon, just because the Boston's kind of like to show a little bit more than the Griffons did.
Sure.
Uh, so that's what I showed throughout juniors, and that's kind of how we got started. So I was either at a dog show or playing little league, one or the other. So
They kept you busy.
yeah, yeah.
Was there anybody who was very kind of like a mentor or guided you as you were learning to show dogs as a junior and kind of coming up in the sport?
My mom mainly. I mean, I was literally just that kid that went to the shows and really knew nothing. Just kind of went,
Yeah.
hung out with my mom. Um, Showed in junior. I mean, I didn't win in juniors at all. I think the most wins I had one year was two. I never qualified for the garden like a lot of these, famous
Yeah.
handlers now that kicked everybody's
Yeah.
butt throughout juniors. I just never, just kind of went. It was just fun. I liked the
Just had fun
dog.
with your dog.
Yeah. So
I think
yeah.
that's
So no,
awesome.
I mean, so it was just mainly me and my mom. I mean, I used to go to as a kid. I used to always go over to Bob Canlin, who was a famous Boston Terrier breeder in Southern California. Um, he had the top winning Boston for a long time, and used to go. I remember going to his motorhome all the time and talking to him. I mean, I don't know if a lot of it stuck at the time, but
Yeah.
looking at
You were just
puppies.
enjoying your
Yeah,
hobby.
I was just enjoying dogs. I mean, that's what it was. That's
Yeah.
where we all started at one point, right? Because we enjoyed
Absolutely.
dogs. So
We often need to get reminded to go back to there, right?
yes, absolutely,
How
absolutely.
did you then, as you age out of juniors, obviously now you're a professional handler, but how did that transition come from something that was just having fun with dogs to a full-blown career?
So as a kid, I having the Bostons and Griffs around, I like to used to like to rough house with them, and they're kind of little, so I kind of fell in love with boxers.
Okay.
And I found somebody that I could co-own one with, and I showed in juniors a little bit. And then just on chance, one of my mom's good friends lives up in Washington, so we used to a lot of times go up there and do that Puyallup in Portland in January. And I was like 17, um, kind of not probably going down the best path in life, and I just happened to be in the airport flying home from Portland, and Michelle Steele was there. She was flying
Hmm.
home from Gary and them showing dogs up there, and she kind of just got talking to her, and she offered me a job. So I went and with Gary the next week. I went to the house, and I can tell you that it was January 31st was my first day. I can remember that. I just turned 17, and so I just went there, kind of not knowing what I was doing in my life, kind of in between like high school and college, and kind of just not
At
knowing
a
where I was going.
crossroads. Yeah.
So yeah, so I went there, and I can remember like in the first week or two of being there, Gary asking me, "Is this what you want to do for a living?" And I said, "No, not really. I just, never crossed my mind." Like I said, I was just that kid that went with his mom, and I remember going to I knew who Gary was because I liked the breed. As one of the breeds I would actually go watch, and so I was like, "No, I don't." Just kind of got to figure out life. And
Yeah.
5 years
This will work
later,
for now.
yeah, 5 years later, I was there for 5 years, and
Wow.
I went on my own at about 22. Probably too young at this time. Um, so Gary was one of my biggest influencers. He taught me a lot, obviously, because like I said, at that point, I didn't know much. So he just taught me everything about the care of dogs and what it takes to win, and the
Mhm.
condition you got to keep them in, and how to properly feed them and water them and X them. And so, I
Right.
mean,
All the husbandry and care that
yeah,
goes on
so he
behind the
was,
scenes.
starting with my mom, obviously teaching me some of that, and then, really kind of getting into the whole handler side of it with Gary, and how it all worked. And
Yeah.
like I had no desire to do this, and now I've never done anything else. It's the only job I've ever had. So
Wow. So then once you went on your own and, in the kind of span of this career, was there anybody who kind of guided you to kind of learn how to operate at that higher level where you're competing, in the best in show rings and the top rankings and that kind of thing? The
yeah, I
strategy
mean, I
behind
mean, I
that?
would still say by far Gary was the biggest influence I had. Looking back, like I said, I learned a ton from Gary as far as that. I I didn't end up going the same path as him. I'm not just a boxer handler. I do a few different breeds. So, um, you know, if I could do it again, I would have gone at 22 and then went and worked for somebody who did more hair to learn that
Yeah,
side of it. Like I said, I learned everything I needed to learn on the care of them, just not
sure.
Gary didn't do a lot of hair. So I actually had my first Griffon special. I won my first group while I was still working for Gary. Kind of towards the end, he let me take on my own client. So obviously didn't learn how to trim it from him. And so I would actually go to Gabriel's. Gabriel and Gary lived about 30 minutes away from each other. So on my day off, I would take my Griffon and go over to Gabriel's, and he would help
Mm,
me, tell me he never really trimmed it unless he just had to show me something. And he would tell me that you're going to trim this, and this is why you're going to trim this. And he would maybe walk
yeah.
out of the kennel for 20 minutes, and I'd work on it, and he'd come back and be like, all right, let's do this. And so Gabriel helped me a lot with that. And just a lot. I mean, I kind of learned how to trim the Griffons through trial and error and just picking people's brains. So
Mm,
growing up in Southern California, I asked Bill McFadden a lot of questions. I once went to Clay with a dog and asked him if he could help me trim it. And he made me watch him trim the complete offside of the dog. And he said, all right, now you go trim the show side. And so Clay, Woody, just a lot of those terrier people in California, I just went and asked. I had a question. So, and then trial and error and a lot of them
just
would
made
tell
it
me,
work.
if you can learn how to roll a Griffon coat, it's a little tougher than a lot of the terriers even. So, so yeah, just picking people's brains and learning how
And
to,
finding what works for you.
yeah. And just I'm a watcher. I just love, like, I still get influenced by people to this day. Just watching them show dogs and watching them
Mm.
trim a dog, or so
Marking what in your brain, what they're doing and why it's
yeah.
working.
So like I said, I didn't the trimming side of it, the grooming side. I mean, I don't ever claim to be the best at it, but I mean, I wish I would have done it differently after I worked for Gary and learned the care. I wish I would have gone and worked for a Bill or Gabriel, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I thought I was that hotshot kid that was ready to go. Um, and so, and I kind of went on my own twice, because I did it at 22, and then I moved from California to Missouri at 25, and I really wasn't even established yet, and had to try to start all over. So, um,
Mm.
so even today, my wife obviously is an influencer. We talk dogs a lot, so she influences me on things too. So just talking to different people. So
Yeah, it's a collaborative learning effort, right?
sure, sure.
Looking back on this progression, what would you say are some of the highlights that stand out to you of your time in dogs? Best memories?
Just all together, highlights.
Yeah.
Um, winning my first Griffon National was a big highlight. I was very young. I was 25, I think. So it was the
Wow.
first Black one to ever win a national. So that was a huge highlight for me. Obviously, winning the group at Westminster is huge. I mean, that's always
Yeah.
winning the group at the AKC show. I've gone on to win, I think, 6 Griffon Nationals now. So those are always, winning the national that you're the
Yeah.
breed that you're passionate about is always huge. Winning the Australian Shepherd National was a big highlight for me. Winning nationals is great. Just everybody's there.
Right. The depth of
Australian
competition on the
Shepherds.
breed level.
Yeah, Australian Shepherds is a breed I married into. It's what my wife bred. She's the president of the club right now. It's her way to still be in dogs because she doesn't show with me anymore. So winning that national was fun because I was a bitch that she kind of found as a class animal. We got hired on as a class animal, and she's like, I really think you could win with this. And so,
Wow.
winning that national on a bitch that she really believed in was fun. So, yeah, nationals, winning the group at the Garden, all that stuff. My first best in show on that Griffon that won the group at the Garden was in Louisville. So
Hmm.
his first one, so under Dr. Bob Smith, and
Wow.
that was kind of fun. So there's been a lot of them. So probably missing some that I don't remember, but
That's plenty good to have in the hat already, though.
sure, sure.
Looking back on all of those experiences and the connection that you've had with family, in the sport, what would be some points of advice that you might give to somebody who's younger or newer to the sport and looking to establish a lasting involvement in dogs?
I think our sport is kind of lacking in mentorship now. So I mean, finding somebody who's a good mentor and can kind of show you the ropes and show you what to do and what not to do. Um,
Yeah.
as far as the handling side of it, I think that so many people are poor at running the business side of it. Just learning how to. I mean, you hear from handlers all the time. The easiest thing we do is go in the ring. So I
Sure.
mean, that's the easiest thing we do. So getting to the show, dealing with the clientele, running the business. I hear so many bad business decisions people make and not billing
Right.
properly. And so as a handler, I think that's, a key essential. I mean, obviously everything else you hear, making sure the dogs are taken care of. And obviously that goes
Yeah.
without saying. So you're never going to be a successful handler if your dogs aren't taken care of properly. So
Right. Right. They are a priority.
yeah,
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for
no
sharing this
problem.
with us. I
No
really
problem. Thank you for having
appreciate
me.
your story.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, good luck today. Have a great week at the National.
All right, Michael. Thank you.